Going into the services and deliverables, within the audit report, you'll find 4 main deliverable items that the auditors are responsible for. The first is the opinion over the district's financial statements, referred to as the independent auditor's report, noted on pages 1 through 3. The next 3 are considered other independent auditor's report. It's in the section of the independent auditor's report within the audit report starting on page 75. So the second deliverable is a report or an assessment of the district's internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. That can be found on page 75 through 76. The third deliverable is an opinion over federal programs and compliance required by uniform guidance on pages 77 through 79. Then lastly, we have the opinion of the district's compliance of state programs as described in the guide for annual audits for K through 12 LEAs on pages 80 through 83. We'll get into a little bit more details on each one and what it means later in the presentation. Then lastly, the last deliverable is Measure H. Here you'll find auditor's opinion over the financial statements, report of the internal controls and financial reporting as it relates to Measure H, and then the performance audit for Measure H bond funds as well. Moving on to the components and layout of the audited financial statements. As previously noted on page 1, it starts off with the independent auditor's report. Here we expressed an unmodified opinion on the district's financial statements. It's the highest and best level of assurance an auditor can express an issue. We know that the district's financial statements and financial position are fairly stated and are materially accurate. In addition, for Measure H, you'll notice that this is, we also express an unmodified opinion over the Measure H bond financial statements. As auditors, we opine on the financial statements and ensure that they're materially correct. Here I would also like to note that it's management's, within the report, it's noted that management's responsibility is for the preparation and fair presentation of the district's financial statements, including the design and implementation of internal controls to ensure that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, whether arising from error or fraud. On pages 4 through 10, here you'll find the management discussion and analysis, also referred to as the MD&A. The MD&A provides the district an opportunity to discuss a high level the financial highlights and delivers comparative financial information from prior year to help explain any significant changes during the 24-25 fiscal year. Next, the basic financial statements are presented on pages 11 through 17. These include the government-wide statement of net position, serving as a balance sheet which details the district's assets and liabilities, which are distinguished by long-term items such as capital assets and long-term debt. It's closely related to corporation accounting, more or less. Then there's the statement of activities, which essentially serves as the income statement outlining its revenues and expenses. The government-wide statements are prepared on what's called a full accrual method of accounting and encompasses all the district funds. It's just not only general fund, it's all the funds that the district has. After that, you'll find the fund financial statements are presented. They're prepared using what's called modified accrual basis of accounting, which typically excludes those long-term items. Statements are being presented using current resources with current operations. That's how they're presenting. In addition, you'll find reconciliations between the government-wide to the fund level financial statements to bridge the gap between the accounting basis used in the governmental funds financial statements, again the modified accrual, and the government-wide using the full accrual basis of accounting. Additional components of the financial statements include the notes to financial statements on pages 18 through 49, which provide greater detail the district's accounting policies, account balances and activities incurred in fiscal year 24-25. After the notes, you'll find the required supplementary information, also known as RSI, which is a requirement by the Government Accounting Standards Board, also known as GASB. This section are pages 50 through 59. This section provides details about the funding, including the general fund budgetary comparison, also obligations for retirement benefits, such as a 10-year history of schedules related to OPEB and net pension liability. Then we have supplementary information, which provides additional details beyond what is required of the basic financial statements and the RSI, and this is on page 60 through 74. This information reports the district's history and structure, schedule of financial trends, reconciliations between unaudited actuals to the audit report, and then also provide combining statements for the non-major governmental funds. Next, you'll have the other independent auditors report. This is what I was referring to in one of the first slides. Time to get into a little bit more detail. So on page 75 is the independent auditors report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance in accordance with GAS. Here, you'll also have the same report for Measure H in that packet on page 20. The intent of this report is to communicate the results of our evaluation of the district's internal control over financial reporting, as well as any significant compliance issues identified during the audit of the financial statements. Essentially, it provides an insight into the reliability and financial reporting process and whether the district is adhering to relevant laws and regulations. Next, on page 77 is the independent auditor's report on compliance for each major federal program and report on internal controls over compliance required by uniform guidance. The purpose of this report is to assess whether the district has complied with the specific compliance requirements associated with federal programs. Since the district expended more than $750,000 this year in federal awards, it was subject to a single audit in accordance with Yellow Book standards. Then on page 80 is the independent auditor's report on state compliance and internal controls over compliance for state programs. In accordance with Education Audit Appeals Panel, also known as EAP, we're required to evaluate, review, and perform compliance testing for certain state programs. These programs are listed on pages 81 and 82. And finally, there's the summary of auditors' results on pages 84 through 89. On slide 8, as shown in the excerpt on the left is page 84, summary of audit results. Here we indicate an unmodified opinion related to the financial statements, federal awards, and state awards. We noted no areas of non-compliance or deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting in federal awards. The federal program selected for testing covered was the IDEA Special Education Cluster, as well as Title I, again, the federal portion of it. However, we did note one finding in state compliance, and we'll get into a little bit more detail on that one in the next slide. The first finding we have, 2025-001, regarding instructional materials. Per the Education Code 60119, subsection C, the board shall make a written determination as each pupil has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for pupils enrolled in world language or health courses. We noted in the resolution of sufficiency of textbooks for fiscal year 24-25, that component was missing. Good thing is, with this finding, there is no question cost. It's more of a compliance item. We provided the district with samples from other districts that incorporate this type of language for future resolutions as it relates to instructional materials. The district implemented this requirement for the 2025-26 school 2025-26 school year, which was approved by the board back in September 10th board meeting. For the summary of Measure H, financial and performance results, which indicates here, we indicate an unmodified opinion related to Measure H financial statements. We note no areas of non-compliance or deficiencies in internal controls over Measure H financial statements. On pages 24 through 28 of that report is the performance audit section, which gives an opinion of the district's compliance with performance requirements as referred to in the Proposition 39 ballot and outlined in Article 13A, Section 1 of the California Constitution. This report includes the purpose of Measure H issuances, audit objectives, scope, procedures performed, and our conclusions. The performance report notes that we tested $620,000 out of $843,000 of expenditures, representing approximately 74%. The results of our test indicate in all significant aspects, Alta Loma School District has properly accounted for the expenditures held in Measure H general obligation bonds, and such expenditures were made for the authorized bond projects. And that concludes my presentation. I would like to open it for any questions the board may have.
Any questions?
If I may, please. By the way, for the audience, it's a huge document. It is online if you wish to peruse it. It's very comprehensive. Thank you very much, Mr. Tarantino, for your presentation. This is your first year auditing our books, and so I appreciate we have fresh eyes on our internal controls and our processes. What is your opinion? You've stated it in several different ways, but in general, what is your opinion of our internal controls and processes?
Yes, thank you for the question. I would again like to thank Eric and his team, the staff when we came out here were very respectful. They were able to answer our questions. In terms of internal controls, we looked at many different areas. We looked at payroll, cash receipts, cash disbursements, bidding. So we looked at many different facets of the business side. The controls are really, really good. We did make some minor notes that could be improved upon, but nothing to be rise to the level of significant deficiency. An item, for example, on the credit cards, we recommended it would be better practice if the district had a formal credit card policy in terms of formal requirement for credit card holders to sign an agreement. So when they're using the credit card, they can't come back and say, oh, I didn't know I can't do X, Y, Z. So just having a written formal agreement between the employee holding a credit card with the district would be recommended. But again, we didn't see anything in terms of the controls of the credit card purchases that would rise to any concern.
Very good. ASB accounts sometimes can be a little sticky. Could you make any comments about the controls and processes of our ASB accounts?
Absolutely. So during our testing of attendance, we also do look at ASBs. We focus more on the formal ASB accounts. So that typically happens at a secondary level, meaning middle school or high school. But since you don't have any high schools, we do with our middle school site attendance testing. This year we went to Alta Loma Junior High, in which we looked at a sample of transactions. The ASB at that particular site looked very well. We ended up pulling a handful of selections for cash receipts, making sure cash is being supported with the documentation and it's making it to the bank in a timely manner. We don't want to see deposits not making it to the bank for a prolonged period of time. That would be an internal control weakness. But they were doing their job as, or the controls are working as intended. And also on the disbursement side, we look at the supporting documentation, ensure that the club members have voted on it, it's in the approved minutes, it has all the required signatures for all those disbursements, and no issues arising for the disbursement side.
Wonderful, thank you.
I had a couple questions. First, sorry, I have a cough, but thank you for being here. And you mentioned different transactions right now. About how many transactions does the district do per month? I know that's a technical question.
I would probably have to rely on me.
Yeah, and I don't have that off the top of my head, but that is information that I can get and share with you.
Okay. I was gonna ask a second question on that, but how many transactions did you test for the audit?
Oh, in term, how many requests did we have, or how many transactions? Because in our testing, we look at transactions over payroll, we look at attendance testing, we look at substantive testing, or some of our substantive testing looks at transactions that occurred in fiscal year 25-26 to make sure it was properly reported, and it shouldn't be in 24-25 or vice versa. So I mean, I could get you that information, but I mean, we look at various levels of transactions.
Okay, yeah, it triggered asking the question when you were describing the different transactions that you tested for. I have a question on page 19. When it says county school facilities fund, how does that fund work in relation to the district, Ultima Local District? It's on page 19, the county school facilities fund.
The county school facility fund is Fund 35. Normally, this is funds that come to the district via a state match, depending on if the project's been approved by usually it's OPSC, and that's where the money's coming in from. So it's a capital projects fund where the money can be spent on capital improvements.
Okay, and then I really enjoyed reading this report. On page 48, I noticed that it says Inland Personnel Council, IPC, and I know we've received, it was listed as one of the GPAs, and we've received, concerns regarding it, and so I wanted to ask your opinion on what recommendation, because there's concerns about the participation without board approval of our superintendent in this, and so I wanted to ask your recommendations as to what would you recommend, what process should we follow as a district when it comes to IPC in order to participate? It's on page 48.
Yeah, let me read it over real quick. I believe this is a JPA that the district is participating in, which is a good thing. Usually it helps limits the exposure of any risk, meaning if you were to get sued over a certain area, that's usually handled by JPAs, and you would just pay it's almost like an insurance. So I'm in favor of the district continuing the participation with it if management see it fits to their needs.
Okay, and then just two other questions. On page 87, when you were talking about the material deficiency, was it just the language that wasn't worded correctly, but we didn't have the textbooks available?
Is this for the instructional materials?
Yes, for the instructional materials.
It's a technicality in the resolution. There was no piece separately stated that there was sufficient textbooks for health or foreign language. Kids enrolled in health courses or foreign language. So one of the things we asked for, just to be specific, because a lot of the times at an elementary school district, they don't have foreign language courses in which pupils are technically enrolled in. It could be part of the curriculum, but there's like no Spanish class or no French class.
Yes.
And that was one of the things I followed up with the district is there are actual classes where pupils are enrolled into health or world language. And unfortunately, there is a Spanish class, which is considered world language, and the technicality of that language was missing in the resolution.
Okay.
So if you were to compare the resolution from 24-25 as opposed to the resolution in 25-26, you'll see there's a separate item that says, and each pupil will have sufficient textbooks in world language for health courses.
Mr. Rebecca, I have a question on that. Are there any penalties or consequences as a result of that finding?
No.